For decades, the New Jersey shore has been the destination of choice for New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania urbanites as a weekend getaway. So when most of us think of the New Jersey shore, we think of the beaches, the boardwalk, the food, and the amusements. Most of us unaware of the nearly 600 years of history that lie just under the waves that lap the sands along the shoreline. History that rests in the shipwrecks that have foundered since the discovery of the New World right through to the present day, due to weather, collisions, war, or simple miscalculations, and in some cases purposely scuttled as artificial reefs.
Oh, cool!
These wrecks have been the fishermen's playgrounds for decades, and for divers since scuba equipment first became available. Every weekend, numerous charter fishing and dive boats, as well as private boats, venture out into the Atlantic to visit these sites and to ply their trade or sport. The Delaware, a wood-hulled passenger liner built in 1880. She is one of the most well-known wreck sites along the New Jersey shore due to her close proximity to land and to Manasquan Inlet. On July 9, 1898, she was on a southerly route when a fire erupted below. She would quickly become engulfed in flames, soon sinking in 70 feet of water less than 2 miles from the beach. Most of her wooden hull has been eaten away by small wood-boring organisms, leaving just the largest timbers and ribs intact. The large iron propeller is easily recognizable and a good point of reference for a diver to navigate from. As you follow the massive shaft forward, you soon come upon the highest point of the wreck, her huge reciprocating steam engine. Just a few feet forward are the boilers. Only one has collapsed after being submerged on the ocean floor for more than 100 years. The massive wooden keel still retains many of the large brass spikes used to fasten her ribs and planks together. The only recognizable portion of the bow is the capstan and the steam winch used to haul up her dock lines and anchor. Besides fish and lobster, divers occasionally recover bottles and brass spikes.
Oh, it was good.
Wonderful. Anytime I can get my gills wet, it's great.
Just a few miles further and nearly 40 years later, another passenger liner would meet her fate. On January 25, 1935, the SS Mohawk was en route from New York to Havana when her steering gear jammed. Veering off course, the Mohawk was now on a collision course with the Norwegian freighter Talisman. The freighter's bow would sink deep into the port side of the Mohawk, inflicting the fatal wound that would send her to the bottom. Divers have been exploring the twisted remains of the SS Mohawk for nearly as many years as the Delaware. Unlike the Delaware, the Mohawk has been depth-charged, mistaken as a possible enemy submarine during World War II, and wire-dragged as a hazard to navigation. The results resemble a junkyard rather than a shipwreck, leaving little to be recognizable. Only the bow section has retained its form as a ship, now lying peacefully on her starboard side. The boilers, winches, and deck gear are familiar sights on many shipwrecks. Here they serve as a good landmark to identify your position within the debris. At a depth of 80 feet, the Mohawk offers plenty of time for divers to explore or to fish and hunt for lobsters, along with collecting mussels as well as scallops that tend to congregate along the wreck's perimeter. Within a few years of the Mohawk's foundering, the world would be plunged into war for the second time, littering the East Coast with hundreds of shipwrecks. On the night of February 26, 1942, with a full load of crude oil, the tanker R.P. Reiser was steaming north on a clear, calm ocean when a torpedo from the U-578 slammed into her port side. The tanker and the ocean around her erupted in flames that could be seen on shore over 20 miles away. Staying afloat for 2 days, the Reiser would burn and drift before finally settling to the bottom 130 feet below, over 30 miles from shore. Over the years, her bow has collapsed considerably, leaving only the most obvious of objects recognizable. The area just aft of where the bridge once was collapsed completely, with no more than a few feet of relief. Listing to port, a large section of the stern is still intact, rising over 30 feet from the bottom. Empty doorways and portholes are still discernible in the remaining superstructure. Her badly decomposed fantail still holds some of its original form, even though her hull plates have rusted completely through. The 4-inch deck gun remains secure to the deck, though the round tub that it was mounted in has rusted away. Being so far offshore, the Reiser is less affected by runoff, surge, or other effects that can influence conditions of inshore sites. Conditions here are always a pleasant surprise to the uninitiated. Though being able to see the boat from the wreck is not common, it's not as unusual as you might think. For most local divers, it's not the conditions that draw them to this site, it's the lobsters. The Reiser routinely produces some of the largest and the most lobster of any wreck site in the area, making it well worth the long day and the additional cost for an offshore destination. During the war, a fully loaded tanker would be a prime target for a marauding U-boat. But in post-war shipping, electronic devices and safety equipment have replaced the deck guns and extra watches. In the case of the Stolte galley, these devices failed, even though she was fully equipped. On November 26, 1964, in a dense fog, the bow of the passenger liner Shalom sliced through the tanker's port side, severing the stern from the rest of the ship. The bow remained afloat, buoyed by her own cargo of oil, but the stern section was not so lucky and sank immediately, taking 18 crewmen down with it. The Stolte galley became a favorite dive destination in the days soon after she sank, and is still the case today. The wreckage reaches over 70 feet off the bottom, leaving the top of the wreck only 60 feet below the surface. Even though only the stern section sank, the Stolte is one of the few wrecks that is easily recognizable as a ship. Her still intact superstructure is quickly deteriorating and will soon join the funnel, ventilators, and other debris that have now settled on the bottom. The sun beams through the openings in the overhead, creating a surrealistic portrait of light as you explore her open decks and companionways. Conditions here may be less than you'd find at most dive resorts, but the shipwrecks along the New Jersey coast can offer as fun and challenging a day of diving as any resort destination.